A wise old owl sat on an oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we be like that wise old bird? A few years ago now, a film came out about the Carthusian monks called Integrate Silence. The archbishop here at the time was very generous and paid for a special showing just for religious in the area. And so the house went, we all in our habits, and to the untrained eye, the Carthusian habit and the Dominican habit aren't so radically different. So we're standing in the lobby of the movie theater, and they have one of those cutout posters set up of this monk with his cowl up, sort of looking very dour. And we're standing next to it, sort of laughing and joking and having a good time. And this stranger came up who was going to see just a normal movie and said, "Hey, aren't you guys supposed to be holed up in a monastery somewhere?" And the superior, without skipping a beat, looked at him and said, "Oh no, sir, you've gotten us confused. Our film's called Into the Great Noise." You have come to a place where people like to talk. But part of the reason for placing this holy hour right in the middle of the day, just as we place office and Mass right at the beginning of the day, and just as every time before we go to bed, we always make sure we pray, we begin, end, and start all of our noise with great silence. Deep, penetrating silence. Most of us come from places that have a lot of noise, school or work or home life, and it can be hard to hear when there's too much noise. So we have to set up places and spaces and times to be quiet. Obviously, given the amount of noise and verbosity you hear here, if you find it hard to be quiet, know that you're in good company. But it's the discipline of the quiet that keeps us honest. Because it's only in the quiet that we come to hear. That we come to hear the voice which has drawn each of us here today, those of you from far away, and even those of us who live here. But there could be other things we would be doing this day. You're all here because you're looking for something. And you've already heard something of what you're looking for. You've caught a glimmer, a single line, a vague, whispering sound that's drawn you to the mouth of the cave. As the voice of God brought you here this day, the voice of God brought you here this weekend, and He longs to speak to you in the silence. The question of the hour, then, is, how do I know the voice? How do I recognize when it's God speaking and when it's my ego, or my own or other people's expectations of me, or a sense of obligation that I feel toward the church that I love so dearly? And those are all good questions. And surely, some of you have been drawn here this weekend who are not being called to our way of life. But some of you are. And the way you know if you're one of those that is meant not simply to come and see, but to come and stay, is if the voice you encounter this weekend, the voice you hear in the talks from the brothers, the voice you hear when we gather together for Holy Mass, the voice you hear now in this silence, is the same voice which you heard that drew you here. If what you hear from me or from the others sounds like the voice you heard from your parish priest or your confessor or the little old lady after Mass or your girlfriend who said, first, maybe you should think about being a priest. Maybe you should think about religious life. If you hear resound here the same voice which you already know, which you've heard in the glimpses of silence back home, then you know. And you've found your way home. Simply know that this work of listening is never done. That the brothers who journey with you through this weekend, the brothers who will continue to be with you as you discern, are themselves bound to the silence, can themselves make no real decision, have themselves nothing to preach if they don't begin in the quiet. I'm going to do something I don't usually do, and that is shameless self-promotion. There's a poem in the folders all of you wrote that is unattributed, and it's mine. But, so it's now attributed. But it's important, and I'm reading this here both for you, but also for the brothers who are here. Because I think it captures something of what's stirring inside, what I hope is stirring inside each of you, what I know is still stirring inside each of me, what gets me up in the morning and gets me into choir, and certainly whatever brings me to the pulpit. This was the prayer I made the morning of my solemn profession. It's the prayer I want to make every morning, and I hope it does something of the same for you. I do not want a barren bush, but one that burns with Moses' fire. I do not want to break my oath, and my words make me a liar. I do not want my little sins to keep me from the prize which shines. I do not want a halfway life which never pains and never pines. I want instead to pay my vows, to plight my troth, come what may, to own myself as best I can, and give myself away. Give yourselves away now, brothers, to the silence.